The story of Abram is a story of faith, a journey that began in the most unexpected of places. God appeared to Abram, a man living in a world of idols, surrounded by the relics of false gods and ancient traditions. He told Abram to leave his home, his family, and everything he had ever known, and travel to a new land that God would show him. God promised Abram that he would become a great nation, his name would be great, and he would be a blessing to all families on earth. This was a monumental promise, one that seemed impossible to a man with no children.
Abram believed God. Despite the uncertainty and the challenges that lay ahead, he trusted in the promise given to him. He left his home and everything he knew, stepping out in faith, guided only by the voice of God and the promise of a future he could not yet see.
One night, God spoke to Abram again, reaffirming his promise in a moment of profound significance. He led him outside and told him to look up at the sky, a sky that was vast and filled with countless stars. The stars were like countless diamonds scattered across the darkness, each one a symbol of the promise God was making to Abram. God made Abram a promise that night, a promise of descendants as numerous as the stars. It was a promise that seemed beyond belief, yet Abram held on to it with unwavering faith.
Look up at the sky and count the stars if indeed you can count them. Each star represents a future generation, a testament to the faith and trust you have placed in me. So shall your offspring be. As numerous as the stars in the sky, so will be the generations that come from you, a legacy of faith and promise.
And so, Abram held on to this promise. Even in the midst of darkness, he carried it with him through every trial and tribulation, knowing that the God who made the stars had also made a promise to him. His journey was long and filled with challenges, but Abram's faith never wavered. He believed in the promise given in darkness, a promise that would light the way for generations to come. And so the story of Abram is not just a story of faith, but a testament to the power of a promise kept. A promise that began in the darkness and led to a future as bright as the stars. Abram was old. He and his wife Sarai had no children. The promise of descendants seemed impossible.
How can I inherit the land when I have no heir?
Doubt crept in, threatening to overshadow the promise. But God responded to Abram's doubt with unwavering faithfulness.
Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward.
He reassured Abram that the promise would be fulfilled. He told Abram to bring him animals for a sacrifice, a symbolic act of commitment.
Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon.
Abram obeyed, preparing the sacrifice as God had instructed. Standing beneath the vast expanse of the night sky, Abram listened to God's words.
Your descendants will be as numerous as the stars above.
It was a promise that defied human logic, a promise that required unwavering faith. As Abram gazed at the stars, he began to grasp the magnitude of God's promise.
I see beyond my present circumstances, beyond my old age, and into a future filled with generations to come.
He saw beyond his present circumstances, beyond his old age, and into a future filled with generations to come. God instructed Abram to prepare a unique sacrifice. This was not just any ordinary offering, but a profound act that would signify a divine promise. Abram, a man of unwavering faith, listened intently to the divine instructions, knowing that this moment would be pivotal in his journey and relationship with God.
Divide them in two and arrange the pieces opposite each other. This meticulous arrangement was crucial, symbolizing the seriousness and sanctity of the covenant being established. Each piece of the sacrifice held deep meaning, representing the commitment and bond between the divine and the mortal. Take a heifer, a goat, a ram, a turtle dove, and a pigeon. These animals were chosen specifically for their symbolic significance in ancient rituals. The heifer, goat, and ram represented strength and endurance, while the turtle dove and pigeon symbolized peace and purity. Each animal played a vital role in the sacred ceremony.
The pieces were arranged opposite each other, forming a path between them. As the sun began to set, a deep sleep fell upon Abram. This sleep was not ordinary. It was a divine slumber, a state in which Abram would receive a vision from God. The setting sun cast a golden hue over the sacrificial scene, adding to the solemnity of the moment.
In a vision, I saw a smoking firepot and a burning torch pass between the pieces of the sacrifice. This vision was a powerful symbol of God's presence and his commitment to the covenant. The firepot and torch, enveloped in smoke, represented the divine light and guidance that would lead Abram and his descendants.
This symbolized God's presence passing through the sacrifice, sealing the covenant between them. It was a solemn and sacred moment. The covenant was not just a promise, but a binding agreement that would shape the future of Abram's lineage. The divine presence was palpable, and the air was thick with the weight of the sacred vow.
To your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates. This promise of land was vast and generous, encompassing territories that would become the foundation of a great nation. The land was not just a physical space, but a symbol of God's enduring promise and blessing.
And so the covenant was sealed, a testament to God's unwavering promise to Abram. This moment marked the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with hope, faith, and divine assurance. The covenant would be remembered for generations, a sacred bond that would guide Abram's descendants through the ages. Section 5, the prophecy of generations.
Abram, know this, your descendants will live in a foreign land, where they will be enslaved and oppressed for 400 years. But I will judge the nation that enslaves them, and afterward they will come out with great possessions.
God spoke to Abram in the vision, revealing the future of his descendants. He prophesied that they would live in a foreign land, endure 400 years of slavery and affliction. However, God promised to judge the nation that enslaved them. God reassured Abram that his descendants would return to the promised land in the 4th generation, possessing great wealth. This prophecy gave Abram hope, a glimpse into the future that awaited his lineage. Section 6, a land of promise.
To your descendants I give this land from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River. It is a land flowing with milk and honey.
God reiterated his promise to Abram, a promise of land. He described the boundaries of this land, stretching from the river of Egypt to the great river, the Euphrates River. It was a vast and fertile land, a land flowing with milk and honey. This land was not just a geographical location. It represented God's blessing, his provision, and his faithfulness to his promises. It was a land that would be passed down through generations, a testament to God's covenant with Abram. Years passed, and Sarai remained childless despite their fervent prayers and hopes. The weight of God's promise seemed to bear down heavily on them.
Abram, I cannot bear children, and my heart aches. Take my Egyptian servant, Hagar, as your wife, so that she may bear you a child.
Abram listened to Sarai's voice instead of God's divine guidance. He took Hagar as his wife, hoping to fulfill God's promise through human means and actions. This decision, born out of impatience, would have far-reaching and unforeseen consequences. Hagar conceived and bore Abram a son, whom they named Ishmael. Abram was 86 years old when Ishmael was born. The birth of Ishmael brought joy but also sowed seeds of discord within Abram's household.
This is Ishmael, the son of Abram.
Hagar, once a servant, now held a position of power as the mother of Abram's son. This created tension with Sarai, who felt her position threatened. The consequences of Abram's impatience were beginning to unfold. The relationship between Sarai and Hagar deteriorated. Sarai, unable to bear her own child, treated Hagar harshly. Hagar, feeling trapped and mistreated, fled into the wilderness.
I cannot stay here any longer. I must leave.
Alone and afraid, Hagar encountered the angel of the Lord by a spring of water.
Hagar, servant of Sarai, where have you come from, and where are you going?
I am fleeing from my mistress Sarai.
Return to your mistress and submit to her authority. I will increase your descendants so much that they will be too numerous to count.
The angel of the Lord revealed to Hagar that she would bear a son, and she was to name him Ishmael, meaning God hears. This revelation came at a time when Hagar felt utterly abandoned and alone in the vast, unforgiving desert. She had fled from her mistress Sarai, feeling mistreated and desperate, seeking solace in the wilderness. God had heard Hagar's cry in her distress. Her tears and anguish did not go unnoticed. In her moment of deepest despair, she found herself face to face with a divine messenger, a beacon of hope in her darkest hour. The angel's words were not just a promise of a child, but a testament to God's unwavering attention to her plight. He saw her suffering and promised to bless her and her son. This promise was a lifeline, a divine assurance that her future held more than just pain and sorrow. It was a promise that her son Ishmael would grow to be a significant figure, a leader of a great nation.
You are now pregnant and you will give birth to a son. The angel's voice was filled with authority and compassion, a blend that reassured Hagar of the truth in his words. You shall name him Ishmael, for the Lord has heard of your misery. This name, Ishmael, would forever be a reminder of God's presence in her life, a symbol of divine intervention and mercy.
Hagar returned to Abram and Sarai, humbled by her encounter with God. Her heart, once heavy with despair, now carried the weight of divine promise and hope. She walked back with a renewed sense of purpose, knowing that her life and the life of her unborn child were under God's watchful eye. She carried within her the promise of a son, a reminder that even in the midst of human error, God's covenant faithfulness remained. This child, Ishmael, was not just a son, but a living testament to God's compassion and his ability to bring hope out of despair. The story of Hagar serves as a powerful reminder of God's compassion and his faithfulness to his promises. It teaches us that no matter how dire our circumstances may seem, we are never truly alone. God's watchful eye is always upon us, ready to offer comfort and hope, just as he did for Hagar in the desert.